rose ceremony, the fantasy suites, holy matrimony. Oh, won't you please take this rose? Hey everyone, and welcome to Buns and Roses, my Bachelor recap podcast. I'm Snax the Bunny, and I'm, just so excited that we've reached January 20th. Happy Inauguration Day. Woo-woo!
Woo-woo!
It's a pretty fun celebratory vibes today, so I'm excited to be doing this with you all. And I'm going to introduce my guests right now. First off, we have Annette Auger. Hi, Annette.
Hello.
Annette Auger is a lover of language and literal titles. She's a former/forever actor, improviser, producer, and writer, and former co-founder of the Beta Society. Nice to have you here, Annette.
Thank you, Snax. I'm excited to be here.
What is your Bachelor journey?
Oh man, my Bachelor journey is very short. This is the first full episode of The Bachelor I've ever watched.
Oh my God.
Yes, I have seen obviously moments of it through the years, and I've lived with people that have watched The Bachelor, so it's been on in the background occasionally, but this is my first end-to-end experience.
Well, I'm so thrilled for you. It's great to have you here. Thank you for coming, Annette.
Thank you for having me.
A real snout to tail Bachelor experience.
It truly is. Next up, we have Beau Gunderson. Hey, Beau.
Hello.
Beau Gunderson is a reality TV appreciator and a fan of the human condition. He has no current projects, but wanted to make an offer, a very generous offer to our audience, to match donations to trans crowd funds. Do you have any that you want to shout out, Beau, or is it just you want people to send you?
If you go to Twitter and find the hashtag transcrowdfund, if you donate, just tweet at me, Beau Gunderson, on Twitter. And I'll match up to, let's say the first $500.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Beau. Just tell me what your Bachelor journey is.
Yeah, my Bachelor journey has just started with this episode. Like Annette, this is the first full episode I've watched.
Oh my God.
Yeah, the majority of my reality TV is Below Deck and Party Down South, which I highly recommend.
Okay, what's the second one? Party Down South?
Party Down South is a bunch of people in a house in the South, and they all are broken in different ways, and they drink a lot. So,
I've never even heard of that one, honestly.
It's on TCM, I think. No, not TCM. What's the country?
Turner Classic Movies.
No, the other T network, TNN,
TLC,
TBS.
Where it's either TNN or a different one, but it's like the country network.
Our final guest for today is Rachel Belle. Hey, Rachel.
Hey, girl.
Rachel Belle is an award-winning radio feature reporter and on-air personality on Seattle's Kyra Radio. She hosts and co-produces Your Last Meal, a James Beard Award finalist for Best Food Podcast, and has featured guests like Greta Gerwig, John Waters, and Sir Mix-a-Lot. She has written about food for publications like The Lucky Peach and Eater, and been a taco expert on the Cooking Channel, and was named Best FM Radio Personality by Seattle Weekly. Oh my God, I love Your Last Meal podcast. It's such a great, fantastic podcast. And it has a great theme song too.
It does have a great theme song. Thank you so much, Snax. I love your podcast too. It's mutual. And so does he.
Oh my God. Hi, Matt James. Wow. He's just right behind you.
Yeah. Just
Beautiful.
always lingering there. It's kind of like the prom. He has his hands around my waist at all times.
Before we get into it, what is your Bachelor journey?
I also have a very small Bachelor journey. I have only watched one or two other episodes from another season, and it was the very first season. So that was 26 seasons ago. And so my only experience with The Bachelor is that it works out and people get married and they stay together for decades, because that was Trista and Ryan. And I believe they are still married happily with children. And so I have no reason to believe that that is not what's going to happen this season. And it's probably happened every other season that I haven't watched.
Well, maybe, okay. Yeah, we'll just go with that. I think everyone's just happily
That's
ever
what happened,
after.
right?
this is a fail-proof way to find love. That's what we can say from The Bachelor. Like, this never fails. So this is week 3 of Matt James's season, and I think just overall thoughts for the episode. The drama has been cranked up like so quickly on this season, and there's honestly a lot of interactions that are happening this episode that I would expect for much later on in the season. Everyone literally just got there. And so it's really bizarre that tensions are as high as they are and that feelings are as deep as they are. And it makes me confused, and it makes me wonder if there's something happening with the editing or something. I don't know. It's just really strange. I'm going to go around and just get your overall thoughts for the episode in general.
So it started hot. There was hotness in the middle. It ended hot. Like, it was all like, it made me feel all sorts of squirmy. And I had lots of questions in the way of like, is this normal? This has reminded me of that like reality TV or the TV show that's based on The Bachelor. What is it? I forget what it's called.
Oh, Unreal.
Unreal. Yeah. Where I'm like, are the producers just pumping these people full of like crazy sauce, or like what's happening? That's how I felt.
I was wondering if they had maybe a surplus of donkey sauce, because there was some donkey running around. Maybe Guy Fieri wanted a little cross promo and get some donkey sauce.
Get that in there.
There wasn't a single frosted tip on this episode, though, I will say.
True. Beau, what did you think overall about this episode?
Well, the donkey stole the show, as you can tell by my Zoom background of the donkey and Matt James. Delightful. This was a great episode to start my journey with. A lot of drama, a lot of turtlenecks too. I did a deep dive on the turtlenecks, and apparently it's a Carrie Fettman signature for the show.
Is that the wardrobe person?
Yes.
Okay.
His
You're
Instagram
just
is
dropping the wardrobe person name like we all know it, which we do, but just so confident.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
Yes. For everyone at home. Yeah, that's the like head wardrobe person. His Instagram has all the outfits if you want to scroll through.
Oh boy.
But a lot of turtlenecks. And some interesting skinny jean choices. Apparently Matt James and Carrie had to come to an understanding about how tight jeans could be.
Beau, have you ever worn a fashion turtleneck?
No, I have not. I've worn an unfashionable turtleneck.
What about a dickie?
Yeah.
What is a dickie?
It's just a turtleneck that has no shirt attached to it. It's just the neck.
Oh, with the old timey ones where you could pull a string and it would.
Yeah, like those.
Yeah.
It's kind of like have a turtleneck without the heat of a long sleeve shirt under your other shirt.
Yeah.
Just the neck and nothing but the neck, sir.
Nothing but neck.
Yeah.
That's what a dickie is. It's got nothing but neck. Rachel, overall thoughts, feelings about this episode?
Well, like Beau said, I also wrote in all caps, it's a 2 turtleneck episode. So that really stood out to me as well. And I actually thought that was quite Al Green-esque when he first walked in. That was the first thing that I thought. I'm like, I know I've seen Al Green wearing a turtleneck and then this very boxy outer jacket. And so I kind of felt like that was a good vintage throwback. But you know, to be honest, this episode made me feel so happy that I never joined a sorority, which was just not my deal. I felt like this must be what it's like, because a lot of the girls that they were focusing on were 22, 21, 24. And I thought, these are the people I've been avoiding my entire life. And now I am stuck with them in my bedroom and I can't get away for an entire hour. That's how I felt about this episode. I
love you too. Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
That said, let's get into the beat by beat of the episode. I mean, it's just wow, one thing after another. The last week we ended with a cliffhanger when Sarah started stumbling and she was about to faint at the rose ceremony. We pick it back up this week and we're back at that rose ceremony after a cold open about a donkey. So we're back at the rose ceremony. She's just sort of, lightheaded and saying that she's, can't see. And the other women are immediately suspicious. They think that she's faking it. Victoria especially is just not buying it with Sarah. And then eventually, Sarah comes back in and they finish the rest of the rose ceremony. The woman that Victoria had been targeting last week, Mary Lynn, gets voted off, and that is kind of disappointing. I'm sure that you guys, having not seen The Bachelor very much, would expect rose ceremonies to happen at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
They kind of
That
just
was a
have them
surprise.
willy-nilly anywhere in the episode now. Sometimes they're in the middle, sometimes at the beginning. It just depends on what the editors want to do. So this one kind of started it because it ended on the cliffhanger of Sarah passing out last time. But what are your guys' thoughts about this first section?
Well, when I was in college, I did have a very cute friend who would fake faint for attention. Not faint exactly. She was a master of falling off a bar stool without hurting herself so that a man would come and pick her up. And she was so small that he would actually come and pick her up. And so when I watched this, I thought, this is a real thing. And I think those other women know it's a real thing. And that's why they thought she was faking, because they're 22 and that's the age. If ever in your life you're going to fake fall and faint, that's when you're going to do it. So I thought, oh, this wasn't just my friend. I think that this is an actual thing.
Wow. Anyone else have that experience?
So I just finished watching Bridgerton, and they talk a lot about fainting there too, where like that is a way to woo a man and show affection. So I feel like that's valid.
It goes back. I mean, this is like it's like there's the oldest profession, and then there's the oldest way to hit on a man is just passing out.
Yeah.
I love a good swoon.
Wow, I've never tried this.
So what Sarah says is something like, I've never fainted for attention, and I also don't think I've ever fainted. Like she clearly has them in two different buckets.
Not sure.
Yeah. Did you guys immediately pick up that Victoria was sort of the villain?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And also, what was she wearing?
She was wearing a
those
dress
sleeves.
Goofy sleeves, yeah.
Yeah.
With the cutout in the middle. It was a very confusing look.
It's a very confusing dress. You know that it's like Shein or Shein, Shein. It's like an app where you can get cheap clothes. This
Is that
dress
where that's
was
from?
found on Shein.
Oh.
Okay.
Someone located it. So if you want that dress, that mess of a dress, and she does have a sty in her eye.
I wrote
She
sty in my
does?
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's just, all kinds of Lynchian body horror happening.
Well,
Her
I
free
actually-
association was pretty amazing.
Marilyn, manipulative, toxicity, jesters, queens, Victoria, positivity, realness, Matt's heart.
She reminded me of somebody at a murder mystery party who was playing that part.
Totally. There's something so skilled about her character.
Yeah.
To me, it's like an improviser making this up,
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yes.
convinced that in the contract of the show for Matt James, he's not allowed to vote her off for some time. I mean, I watched the first episode of the season, and the fact that she wasn't gone after the first episode, I thought, of course not. They need this person. She's nuts. She needs to be called the queen. That's her job title. So I figured, oh yeah, they're going to keep her around for a long time because she's
Mhm.
going to make it spicy.
Yeah. After the night rose ceremony happens, the women who stay get to stay. The people who left that got voted off, spaghetti and meatballs from night one, the woman that gave the spaghetti and the woman that gave the meatballs, they were both voted off. And this Mary Lynn was voted off. And then one other person, I forget her name. So 4 women were voted off. And now we are on the next day. Everyone's kind of hanging around the house. Chris Harrison comes in and he says to everybody, like, Matt and I have agreed that it's time to turn up the heat on these challenges. It's time to get more uncomfortable, blah, blah, blah. And then he leaves the first date card, which is for a group date. And a bunch of women get their names called and they all go off to meet Matt for this group date. And nothing super remarkable happens here, except we cut to what the group date is. And it's a woman in the dark on stage reading some erotica.
Maybe it was time to shake things up a bit. He was positioning himself over her, raising her hips to meet his. With one hand, she cupped his buttocks. With the other, she reached down to feel him against her thigh. His lips moved to her ears, her neck. She panted, "Jake, please don't make me wait anymore." Hi, guys. Hi. Hello, Matt. wondering why you just heard all that, that's because there's a very important writer, and his name is Chris Harrison. He wrote a book called The Perfect Letter, and The Perfect Letter is a love story, but it's passionate, it's erotic, and to be really frank, there's a lot of sex in it.
I mean, wow. And I looked and saw that book is now a bestseller on Amazon, and I'm pretty sure
overnight
it was because of this episode.
Yeah.
I bought the
That
copy on
delighted me.
Kindle. I bought a Kindle copy and perused it, but it seems pretty boring. It's like a woman who falls in love with a man from prison, and they write letters to each other. And it's called The Perfect Letter. The challenge of the date is that they all have to write their own erotica scene, their steamy scene starring them and Matt. And that's what and they have to read it in front of everybody. What did you guys think about the group date?
For me, when they're like, I'm gonna like, he really needs to get uncomfortable, push him in his boundaries. I was like, are they gonna go like skydiving? Is it gonna be like ropes courses? And then they like open up to this scene, and I like instantly died inside. I was like, this is the most awkward thing I can think of. And like, I crumbled, but also was fascinated. That is how I felt going into this exercise.
It's like having to do dirty talk on TV.
Yeah.
That to me too, I was like, ugh, I was really impressed that they came up with that, but I didn't think that they made it uncomfortable for Matt. His name's Matt, right?
Yeah.
Matt. Okay.
It's right behind you, by the way.
I was like, what's his name? He just had to sit there and listen and soak it up. You know, he did like his own tiny little reading, but I felt like that was just to embarrass all the women. And he just got to sit there and, you know, listen to sexy talk.
Chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Katie and Victoria, both of their stories, like the majority of the words were bleeped. And I really want to know specifically what Victoria's was, because it just seems like super blunt.
I really want to see the director's cut of this. I really want to know.
And then she pushed him onto his back so she could his because she needed him at that very moment.
Oh, wow.
She reminded me a lot of Buster Bluth when he goes on a swearing tear on Arrested Development.
Yes.
And it's just,
I'm an uptight Buster!
Well, no one's gonna top that.
part of me wonders if they added more bleeps than actual, like if they just, the editors made it seem more dirty.
In the montage, they had a part of somebody's story that was like slam poetry, and I really want to hear the full version of that one as well.
Oh, really?
I didn't catch who it was.
It was a pretty uncomfortable date, though. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it. And if I did have to do it, I'd probably lean into the humor of it as much as possible. Because how do you, I mean, I thought he was pretty stiff reading his, no pun intended.
I mean, he is though, right? Like, can we just talk about Matt James for a second?
Yeah.
He's not my cup of tea. And I was just like, do all of these ladies actually think he's their, like, I couldn't tell in the show. Like, I feel like you just have to want whatever it is you want it. And I'm like, it's just such an interesting concept.
Yeah, how much Stockholm Syndrome is involved in The Bachelor? It's like he's the only blood. You know, they're just out for blood and he's the only blood.
The other thing in this scene is you get to see Sarah watching all of these stories get read, and she's just like vibrating with insecurity.
Yeah. Yeah, and she says like it was like a knife in my heart and this triggered me, all the infidelity history that I've had, like this is just too much for me. And I'm sure there's other women in that room that have a hard time with that sort of thing too, but they're powering through it because it's The Bachelor. It's weird to come on this show with that type of baggage, I think.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that they went on a single date together and she's already so in love with him that she can't handle hearing other girls read obviously campy, you know, fake kind of romance novel stuff. I mean, that's what's so interesting about this show is like everybody's in love immediately. Like they give them some kind of Kool-Aid to drink and you go on one, but maybe that's what it's like when you're 22. I'm trying to remember. Was that what it was like? You'd go on one date and be in love? Maybe this is just normal.
I mean, I sort of feel like it's, okay, I think it's possible, that there could be women or men, whichever, that they are so young, like say they're 21, 22, 23, and they've gone on dates, but like they're not dates that are set up for them by producers that actually like carve out specific time to have vulnerable conversations. I think that the way that the Bachelor producers plan these dates are very romantic and very intimate, and maybe a lot of people at that age haven't had that. So I think it could potentially make people feel like, oh my God, wow, this is so special.
Yes.
Usually you have to be like 37 to wear a ball gown and have a date in a castle.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's like
true.
you feel like a princess, right?
Yeah.
It's also like camp too. Like, I mean, I don't know if you all have ever been to summer camp, but like emotions run high. You're together with people maybe a week, maybe it's a summer, but you're like, you're my best friend. And you make
Yeah.
those ties. And so, like, the whole point of the show is to get the validation, which is love. And so there's just like a heightened sense of everything going on. And it's like, it's right underneath. So people can convince themselves when they're in it of whatever.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I had the thought that we've been, quarantined for however long, and there's a pandemic, and I feel like that is upping the drama and the intensity of all of
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
if these women are single and maybe they haven't gone on many dates or any dates, like if maybe they haven't been laid in almost a year, they're going out there with some crazy energy, and they've been
Yeah.
cooped up in their house, and this is the first time they can interact with a bunch of people, and there's cameras and there's lights, and they get 2 drinks an hour. I mean,
Can we talk about the kissing? Because I
Oh,
felt
yeah.
like such a prude watching it because I was like, damn, he just kisses every single one. Like, imagine being so desired that you just sit in a room and then women come in and out and then you make out with every single one of them. Like, it's obscene, really. And a lot of the time, the way that they angled the camera, his mouth is just coming for you. Like, he'd be like,
yeah,
you know,
And he
like those were
never
the
closes
shots.
his eyes.
he never closes his
No.
eyes. He always comes at them with the mouth, open mouth like this.
I'm like pausing and freeze framing, like back and forth. Like, did he close his eyes there? Never happened in the whole episode. And I'm like, where does he look? He's like looking at the nose.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
And if
Like a
you don't close your
classy-
eyes, you're going to get a sty from someone. You have to protect yourself.
As the night progresses, Sarah gets more and more uncomfortable. She's up in her room. She's not coming down. And then she decides that she's going to go and interrupt the group date to talk to Matt. And he's now talking to Katie, who on night 1 showed up with a dildo. And that was what she came out of the limo with. And she's sort of been the spokesperson for sex positivity on the show, for lack of a better word. And she's really opened up with this challenge and really liked that the other woman opened up to the challenge. And she was kind of having her moment with Matt to tell him how much fun she had with that challenge. And Sarah interrupts. And now this whole like interrupting thing, this is like a huge Bachelor no-no. But especially if you're not on the date that you're interrupting, that's a mega huge no-no. What did you guys think about Sarah interrupting the group date?
I was curious if, like, because I don't know The Bachelor, like how much that happens, because the producers obviously let it happen, and it was one of those things where I'm like, really? She's like, you're so hot and bothered, you must talk to him right now. And I also really wanted like an understanding of time. Like that's something I really lost during the show, is like how much time has passed, how much time do these people get with, like they talked about like minutes as precious. So I was really curious about that too.
And someone makes the point later on in the date that Sarah would have had time with him later that week. Like she didn't have to find him that night.
I have a lot of thoughts about this scene with Sarah interrupting. I do not think she can help herself. I don't think it's like, she's planning to be manipulative. I think her heart was going to explode if she did not go in there and like unburden herself.
Yeah.
It's just not the show for her.
Yeah.
She's too intense. Katie coming back in after the interruption and awkwardly standing in the corner.
Ugh.
It made me love her a little bit. She's my favorite because she's from Washington.
Yeah,
Kinda
she's
have
from
to-
Renton. What?
Team Renton.
And there we go.
And
In my perusal of the Bachelor web, I found out that purple dress Katie was wearing was $6 from Goodwill. So there's another
Okay,
fun
yeah.
nice.
sartorial fact for you.
Oh, I like her even more now too. And also, Beau, I think you're going to become a fashion blogger because that's mainly what you've been focusing on at this point. Oh my God, when Sarah was crying really hard, she had this really glossy lip gloss on, and her lips are so big that her whole face just looked wet, and it was just so distracting. Like, it didn't look like just normal tears. It just looked like a parody of somebody crying, just full, like she was crying through her lips.
Yeah, I did think it was pretty awkward when Katie was just waiting there, but it really made me laugh when Katie refused to leave, and then she's like, "Well, will you walk me out?" And then they left her sitting there.
I thought it was interesting too, because like I feel like the girls, when Katie went back to the girls, they were like, "Go in there, do it." And I'm
Yeah.
like, would Katie have gone back in if she hadn't been like a little like peer pressured into like breaking it up again? And then when she was there, she's like, "I got to do something."
Well, and
I-
the person that was telling her to do that was Victoria.
Victoria.
Victoria is the common thread in this whole episode is that Victoria is the driving force between all the drama. Like, she's the one who kind of gets everyone in the house to really turn on Sarah. And it's so crazy when you watch her do it, and she's so happy with herself that she's able to do it too.
Yeah. But Sarah also just seems like she's been doing this her whole life. Like when she said, "Will you walk me out?" She knows what she's doing. She's trying to get a lot of
Mhm.
time with him. I think
Mhm.
that she's just a pretty popular girl who's always known how to manipulate men, and she uses her emotions to do it.
She reminded me of Alexis from Schitt's
Oh, yeah.
Creek. Like
she's a little
100%.
bit Alexis.
She's a little bit Alexis.
So she sees how upset Katie is with her, and then realizes that, oh boy, I'll bet the rest of the women are going to be upset with me. So Sarah goes into the place where all the other women are hanging out, and she's like decides she wants to apologize to them and get ahead of it. And so she comes in and she's just like, "Hey, I just wanted you to hear it from me that I'm here and like why I'm here." But she wouldn't give them specifics, and everyone keeps interrupting and be like, "But why are you here?" And she's like, "It's personal. It's literally between me and Matt," and kind of didn't give the women any real information, and then left. And then they were like, "Cool." What did you guys think about this moment about her trying to apologize to the room full of women?
I think, Annette, when you said camp, that is the best way to describe this, because there's a group think that happens where those women were all like, "We're together and we're against you." Like, there was nothing that Sarah could have done. In reality, you know, she did something that was a faux pas, and she took away some time. I don't know how long, 10 minutes. And for taking 10 minutes of this guy's time, that one woman, I don't remember who, was like, "I never want to hear her name again."
Well,
I was
yeah,
like,
and that happens
"Okay."
later. That happens later in the episode when Kit says that to her. And in this moment, it's really just kind of Victoria being like, "What? You know, you're not really explaining yourself," and blah, blah, blah. And then Sarah just kind of gives up and says, "Well, I said I'm sorry and I'm leaving." And so she leaves. Victoria runs after her, and outside is just saying, like, "Wow, we were really concerned for you. Like, are you okay? We thought it might be your health. Like, wow."
I was fascinated by that tactic. I was like, oh, like I love it because it's a little like they're trying to elicit some shame, like you should be ashamed of your actions. We, us good people, we were concerned about your well-being and health. And it's just like such bullshit.
Yeah. So that's kind of how that evening ends. The women are fuming at Sarah. And then the next morning, Katie tells the women that were left behind at the house last night, she says, "Yeah, you know, actually, last night Sarah interrupted our date," and the women are really surprised to hear this. And then it starts this whole thing of the entire house being turned against Sarah. Matt comes in, wants to address the thing about Sarah, but then ends up looking around and seeing that she's not in the room, and then goes to find her.
I think
And
Matt likes the drama because when he went to go find her, he walked in the room and then he jumped on the bed in this really playful way and he jumped on top of her. And I was like, oh, he's into this. Like he's into this girl who's been crying for 36 hours straight and whose face is just completely lip gloss. Like, I don't know. I was surprised that he was reacting that way. I thought he would be a little like, oh my God.
yeah, and I think typically the lead in The Bachelor, a lot of times it happens where there's a villain or there's a bunch of people that are hated in the house, and the lead is just completely oblivious. And the lead will continue to give that person a rose. The lead will continue to keep that person around, and everyone around them is like, how do they not see this? It's like such a Bachelor trope that they are never, the Bachelor is never the one. They're always the last to know if someone's a problem. And so with Sarah, yeah, he's just eating it up with a spoon and giving her all the attention because also he's someone who has no experience in the Bachelor world. Normally, if someone is a lead on the show, they've been a contestant on a previous season, and Matt was never a contestant. He was cast because he was best friends with a very popular contestant. So he was sort of cast in a non-traditional way and doesn't really know these dynamics or these rules as well. So he's kind of like, I think Matt is just kind of someone who's a real pushover, and I think he's just too nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
I think
I
he
can see
doesn't
that.
like people being upset. I think he's a people pleaser. And I think this woman, I think anyone showing up and crying, he's just going to be like, I'm going to do whatever I can to make you feel better.
Yeah.
While he's up there with Sarah, Victoria starts scheming, I think, to Serena, who's about to go on the date with Matt. And she's like, can you tell Matt that Sarah sucks? Which
That's
I thought
right.
was like an interesting little dig.
Yeah, and Victoria's the one who seems to be watching the clock. She's like, it's been 5 minutes. I think it's been 5 minutes. Has it been 5 minutes already? And it's like,
That actually was really interesting. I don't think they're allowed to have watches, and I don't think there are any clocks because they could not agree how long it had been. They were just
It's
guessing.
true.
that is true. They have no concept of time. Okay, so then Matt gathers Serena to go on their date, and you know, I don't have a lot to say about their date. It was fine. It's a very typical Bachelor date. They go horseback riding. She teaches him how to make a charcuterie plate, which I don't think is a skill.
Also, did you notice that they were putting the meats and cheeses on what looked like a towel or a
Yes.
napkin? Like maybe
Sure
on the
did.
show, they're not allowed to have clocks and they're also not allowed to have hard surfaces in case something happens. Like, no, we can't give you a wooden board. Just put it here on this napkin or this little piece of toilet paper.
I'm very entertained by what the Bachelor producers have decided is a date in the pandemic. And I like that they decided that she needs to teach him how to put things on a board.
And he was like, I don't think I can do it. I mean, it was just,
It's
it
really
was such like an old school, like those cookbooks, like, you know, the Bachelor who can cook, but not referencing the show, just like men can't cook, only women can. It's funny that you weren't entertained by it. That was actually my favorite part of the show. And the only part of the episode that I really, really liked, because I thought that Serena was so likable. And I think that she's the most likable of the women that I've encountered yet from the 2 episodes I've watched. She seems like a normal person. She doesn't seem super fake. She doesn't say like and literally every other word, which drives me crazy. She's not boring nice. She just, I mean, she was kind of teasing him. They had their little turtle inside joke. Like I actually was hoping that he would end up with her and was wondering if he was too boring for her.
Yeah, I thought they actually had really good chemistry with each other and that they seemed very natural with each other. And I felt like he really likes her.
Yeah.
I almost felt like with a lot of the other women that he goes on dates with, like it's almost like a rehearsed sort of liking.
Mhm.
But with her, it actually did feel like pretty genuine, and she is very likable. I agree.
She's so cute and she has the cutest smile. And also it reminds me of like basketball players who have really tiny wives. And I've always wondered, how do you kiss? Do you have to make an appointment? Because you can't just give a spontaneous kiss because they're 4 feet height difference. Yeah. So that's what I want to know, if they're going to like carry around a ladder with them for their.
So you take advantage of every stairway, you
You
know?
did.
Yeah.
I think it's his smile as you can see right over my shoulder here, totally genuine on that date. And one of the rare times where it looks like he's actually having a good time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as opposed to just like a plastered on smile.
Annette, any thoughts about the date with Serena with the donkeys and the charcuterie?
So I agree. Like my boyfriend and I both had a comment about the charcuterie board because we're like, what? He's just putting like meat and cheese, and he's seeming to have a really hard time. But I really like Serena as well. Her rhetoric of like, I think I'm falling in like with him. It's just like at this point in the show, I think I've heard 3 other girls say basically the same thing about like I might have caught feels. How could this happen? And I was a little exhausted with I'm like, come on, Serena.
That is sort of a Bachelor trope as well. Like there's
Mhm.
stages of liking someone. There's like, I really like you. I'm starting to catch feelings for you. I think I'm falling for you. I'm falling in love with you. Or I could see myself falling in love with you. And then it's, I love you.
Mhm.
It's like this progression that every season it seems to be that people are adhering to.
I want somebody to like really switch it up, like in Jeopardy when somebody goes for the big coins. I don't know what it would be, but not the trope. I always like people to buck the trope.
Yeah, like, I want to wear turtlenecks with you.
I want to have a throuple with a donkey, something like that.
Totally, totally. I want to make charcuterie on you.
Yes, yes. Yeah, on his abs, they could make a charcuterie board.
Yeah.
Charcuterie board.
Charcuterie abs. I love it. Oh, but the other thing about Serena's date that I wanted to bring up is I don't know what's happening this season. So again, you know, they're limited because of the pandemic, but every single date has been ending with this hot tub every time. And it seems like every time the women didn't know it was going to happen and they don't have swimsuits, she's definitely wearing her dress in that hot tub. I don't know if you guys noticed it.
I noticed
I
that.
didn't notice
Yeah.
that.
I noticed it 100%. I was like, she's wearing her
What?
dress. And Cannon's like, they
Because her
would give
dress-
her.
Her dress
Yeah.
has this really cute neckline.
It's me.
And it's very distinctive neckline that was very flattering on her. And when you cut to the hot tub scenes, she's still wearing it. And the last episode, Bree was on a date, and I don't think she was wearing like anything. I think she was actually just covering up with her hands, but she didn't have anything to wear in the hot tub. So I don't know what's going on. Why aren't the producers telling these women to bring swimsuits on the date? Like, what is happening? While Serena is on her date, the women are just foaming at the mouth to take Sarah down. So she's been in her room all day, and the women are just downstairs waiting for her to resurface and just getting more and more angry at her. There's a knock on the door, which is the next date card. We never, for the rest of the episode, get to hear what's on that date card because the minute the date card comes down, so does Sarah, and everything screeches to a halt, and they just go after her. And then it just gets really mean girls, I think. I don't know. Like, I'm not a huge Sarah fan, and I think she could have handled things a little bit better. But man, does this get brutal. What did you guys think about this scene? Victoria's just like being like, we don't want to make amends with you. And this is where Kit has her line of like, your time in this house is going to be terrible. What did you guys think about this scene?
They declared war on her. Like it was like, if you stay, you are fucked. There's
Yeah.
like, it's done.
It's messed up.
Yeah, this is again where they use some of the same rhetoric where they're like, we were concerned about your health. We're worried about you. Like that came up again. And I'm just like, it's to your point, Rachel, it's such a sorority thing that I feel, I don't know, I was never in a sorority either, but like the way that they're doing it and how good it must feel to have a common enemy. And they're really just like languishing in that joy.
Because they
Yeah.
all want to be with him. And so maybe that's a coping mechanism is
Yeah.
that like they have, it's like, okay, we'll all stick together, even though we're on opposite teams, but we have to go after somebody. Yeah. And it's interesting because I thought that everybody would hate Victoria, but she's become their leader and everyone seems to like her.
Yeah, it was a little twisted because that was definitely a shift from the last episode, even. I mean, everybody hated Victoria as of episode 2, and this is just episode 3, and suddenly it's all about Sarah. But it really, Victoria was very calculated from beginning to end of this
Mhm.
episode in making Sarah the target, and really feeling that fire.
Sarah
and
helps. She helps her out by
does.
being a good target.
It's true. I don't think Sarah did much to help her own reputation here. Um, did you guys ever have any sort of mean girls run-in type things in your lifetime? Like, was this true to life for any of you when you were younger, of like encounters with people like this?
So I had a semester in like high school where I was friends with a group of girls, and they weren't exactly mean girls, but there was definitely somebody always on the outs, and it rotated. And it was that thing about like, it feels so good to bond with people over something bad. And then like, you never know what seat you're in. And it's very uncomfortable because you're like, if I leave this room, are they going to talk about me? Is it me this week? And it's so uncomfortable. And so uncomfortable.
And like in college, like when you're like a young adult in like college years, did you ever come across women like this? The sort of really catty women? Yeah.
No.
Like
Only I remember girls being really mean in even elementary school, especially middle school, and then some in high school. But yeah, in college, that's when you're supposed to become a normal person and your hormones aren't raging anymore. But I think, I never hung out with a group of 25 women for weeks and weeks on end. So again, like maybe that's a sorority thing. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's just a lot of women and they're hanging out all the time. When you see those scenes, when the group date is happening and everyone else is at home, what are they doing? They're just all in their sweatpants all day. And I bet they keep them away from food a little so they get a little hangry and they don't know what time it is. They probably are just kind of bored. All they have to do is talk shit.
Well, yeah, they're not allowed to like read or go on the internet or anything like that. So they are very limited on what they're able to do. I think I heard that they're only allowed to bring a Bible if they want a Bible. Like that's the only book they're allowed to bring.
Wow.
Which is crazy. But yeah, they are forced by producers to sit around and talk about what is happening. Like that is all they're allowed to really do. And yeah, it would drive a lot of people crazy. I think a lot of women are staying out of that unflattering light, but then there's some that are stepping gladly into it.
Mm-hmm.
Beau, do you ever have any experience with this type of stuff?
I was always a person in school who got bullied, but my whole deal was sticking up for the other people that got bullied. which I just didn't know that it wasn't going to turn out well. So like but for that reason, I feel like I kind of identified with Katie, who goes over to Sarah towards the end and kind of gives her this olive branch. They have this very like heart to heart about their fathers. Sarah's dad has a terminal illness. Katie's father passed in 2012. So they kind of have a heart to heart, and Katie is basically like, Matt's clearly into you. I don't want to be like second fiddle. I don't want to be backup plan. So like I like want you two to figure that out. So she encourages her to stay, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
That was nice. That was the
really
most genuine
that.
thing.
That was my favorite part of the episode, honestly, was those two women connecting and relating to each other. It was nice that Katie, even though she was pretty upset at Sarah and was slighted by Sarah or disrespected by Sarah in some small way, like it was nice that she was able to be the bigger person and extend that olive branch and relate to her in this really important way. Sarah talked about her father on episode 1, and then when she had her one-on-one with Matt, she opened up about her father to him. And I think that she made the right choice ultimately to leave. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit. What do you guys think?
Me too. I just thought when she said her dad had weeks to live, I thought, why did you even come here in the first place?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Let's say you won The Bachelor and he was your husband. Would it even then be worth it? Like you're 22, you're going to meet somebody else. I just can't believe that she came. And after she revealed that fact in this episode, I thought she has to leave because you're going to take the risk of maybe winning this show, but probably not. And you're just what if your dad dies while you're here? And it was ridiculous to me. So I am glad that she left. And I kept thinking she was going to change her mind and stay.
That would have been bad.
So I feel like even Matt, it was wrong of him to try to convince her to stay even then. Like, no, I really think I was like, her dad has weeks to live. I just thought that was nuts.
Yeah.
she became sympathetic to me in that moment because I'm like, okay, like you could be a
Yeah.
little emotionally overwhelmed right now. And I appreciated Katie flipping in that moment too and being like, no, you need to go home. Like,
Yeah.
I like now.
Yeah,
it
it is an interesting choice for Sarah to have come on the show at all. You know, and you know, she did make the comment before, like, oh, my father really does want me to find love. And it's like that may be all well and good, but is this the time to go on a national TV show? And how psychologically fit are you to do that? And I think that maybe just to be generous to her, I think maybe she thought she can handle it and she definitely couldn't and learned the hard way, I guess. Um, that's the most generous way of looking at it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely provided some context for the intensity of the emotions she was feeling earlier in the episode.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I've been like I when I was in grade school, I had a group of girls who ganged up against me, and it was really tough. And they actually voted me out of their group.
Oh.
They handed me a note that had all of their signatures with a skull and crossbones on it.
My
What?
God.
Like
just that-
officially, like signed a contract that they wanted me out of their group. And I was in like 5th grade or 6th grade. I was like really young. And that stuff happened to me, yeah, like super young. You know, but like again, like once I got into my 20s and like college, like that stuff was like elementary school stuff. I think it's so bizarre that there's women who, you know, are like this into their 20s. It's just to me, I don't understand it at all. So that I really related to Katie and Sarah's connection a lot more than anything else I saw the women doing in the house.
Yeah.
And Katie seemed really genuine because she actually started crying right away. So she was really, truly empathetic.
And I do think that there's probably other women in there that were just keeping quiet to stay, quote, out of the drama that probably didn't really agree with what was going on. But, you know, as we've seen on the national level, like that, that's not much worse. Or that's not much better than being the person doling out the punishment. She should have had more people defending her, I think, honestly.
Yeah, I did think it was interesting that Rachel got a rose in one of the one-on-one dates, or like they were alone and she got a rose. And I think just by being completely untouched by any of the drama of the episode.
Yeah.
So for her, it was a winning tactic, but just as on a human level, Victoria successfully ousted Mary Lynn.
Yeah.
And I think people kind of saw like, oh, Sarah's the new target. I'm not going to get in the way of that. And yeah.
Yeah. So Sarah ends up, you know, finding Matt and telling him that she is going to leave, and they have a, you know, discussion about it, and it seems pretty hard for her. She's crying a lot. There were a few scenes where Sarah was crying where I didn't see any tears coming out, and it was kind of bothering me because I was like, I was looking for that wetness. I was looking for that moisture on her face, and I wasn't seeing
Your
it.
moistometer.
Not just on her lips.
Like she's definitely was crying when the women were going after her. She was crying, but there was times when she was talking to Matt where I was like, "Are you really crying, or what's happening?" But whatever. I mean, she left, and I think that was the best choice for her. Obviously.
Yeah, I what you were saying about like her and like the tears. Again, I'll reference camp because it was like I just remember when you're like, because the emotions are so raw, they're kind of like childlike. And it reminds me of like when scary things happen at camp. I grew up in Michigan and we had like tornadoes, and like if you're in Michigan, you're like, whatever, tornado, it's gonna pass. But like certain kids would get so worked up they would throw up. And so I feel like that was the kind of level and like what was going on.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Matt after Sarah told him that all of the women had ganged up on her and were so mean, because then I felt like now he has to figure out who the nice ones are and who the assholes are, because that's kind of, I don't know if I was leaning into it too much, but it looked like on his face, he was like, you know, it's like he knows everyone's going to be really sweet to him. And so how is he going to figure out who's actually a nice person?
Well, in past Bachelor seasons, usually those people are named and thrown under the bus before that person leaves. Like they're like, hey, just so you know, Victoria's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And then they leave. And then he has to go and like track that person down and like, hey, Sarah said this about you. She didn't name names, which I thought was actually kind of cool of her.
Mhm.
And yeah, Matt's just gonna have to figure out for himself who the good people are. And I think so far his radar on that has been pretty good. I think the women he seems to gravitate towards have been like the kind of more normal ones, I guess.
Mhm.
That kind of brings us to the end of the episode, actually. I mean, there really like a lot happened, but it kind of was condensed on like a few different storylines. We do see episodes or scenes from the next episode where 5 more women are going to be added. So next week is going to be a doozy as well. But yeah, anyway, any final thoughts on this chapter of The Bachelor with Matt James?
So I will say, I cringed throughout the whole thing. I
Yeah.
was like, how do these people have this tone in their voice, like the vocal fry? Like they do say like often, and there's like certain similarities going on. And I wanted to die a lot. And I was like pulling my hair out of like, why do people like this? But then they throw that teaser in there, and I'm like, huh. And then Cannon looked at me and he's like, are we Bachelor people now? Are we gonna watch
Yes,
this?
you are. 'Cause now you want to listen to my podcast.
It was so interesting.
Yeah. Beau?
Inject the show straight into my veins. I'm hooked for sure. Also, I'm Team Katie. I don't know if she'll get picked, but she's I'm rooting for her.
Is she your
And
top pick?
Yes.
yes, I don't know who else I would
Your
pick.
hometown hero?
Serena.
Hometown hero. Serena's
Serena,
cool,
yeah,
but
we
she's
like
no
Serena too.
she's no Katie.
Yeah.
And I loved ending on the hiccup montage.
Oh yeah.
That was silly.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
and my only other thought was the teaser where they're kind of like these 5 girls come in, and apparently one of them may be an escort, and it just like that's the worst thing in the world, right? It's very
Right.
anti-sex
Yeah,
worker.
this is
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to this storyline because there's going to be so much sex worker shame, and I just want the Bachelor franchise to evolve already. And it's like, okay, I'm happy they have their first Black Bachelor. I'm happy that they have a little bit more diversity in their casting, and I really mean just ethnic diversity. But I'm not looking forward to how that conversation is going to go. It seemed like Anna was calling out somebody for being a sex worker and in a very derogatory way. And I really hope that someone steps up. Hopefully, Katie can be our hero again and step in and be the sex positive person that she is
There you
and
go.
defend whoever that is. That's what I hope. Rachel, your thoughts?
My thoughts. Yeah, I think a good way to end the show is just to have a woman being taken away in a giant SUV sobbing. I thought that was like a really lovely ending.
Yes.
And I was curious if they always did bloopers because I also did like seeing Matt have the hiccups. I think on a show like this where everything just seems so fake and so staged and so planned, anytime you get a real moment, you just suck it up. It's like, oh my God, a real person alert. He has the hiccups. And, those are the things that we crave, which is why it's interesting that the show is so successful because it is so fake and we do crave, real stuff so much. But yeah, maybe it's the kind of show where people just, finish it and go, whoo, I'm glad my life's not like that. And it's like that kind of thing that
I
makes
feel
you
that
feel
way
better
for
about
sure.
yourself. Yeah.
I'm with you though. It's like I really love those like more real moments that they have. It like almost like the blooper reel
Yeah.
in the closing credits, but it always bums me out that they're not showing you that stuff in the episode. It's like you don't get to see people's like real character. You don't get to see them like really laughing at something or being silly unless it's a blooper. And at the end of the season, they always have blooper reels. And I'm always like, why didn't you show us that stuff? Who was your favorite?
My favorite is Serena for sure. She is my favorite. I mean, I've only seen 2 of the episodes and not everybody really gets a chance to shine or to talk that much. So there might be other women that they haven't really highlighted yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, she is definitely my favorite, which is funny because like in real life, she probably wouldn't be. It's just like everyone's so crazy that I'm like, oh, she's nice. Like normally I would go for someone who's like a little bit wackier, but in this show, it's like, everybody calm down. Like anytime somebody's just chill, it's like, I need that balm. Serena is the balm of the show at this point for me.
Well, and some of my favorite women were completely silent this episode, so you really didn't get a chance to see them at all. So it'll be interesting to see how your personalities are brought out in the coming weeks. Before we close this out, I actually wanted to go around. And I thought it'd be really fun if you guys told me. So I made you watch The Bachelor. Thank you so much for doing it. But now I'd like to know, like, what is your favorite thing you've watched recently? Could you recommend anything to me or to the audience on things to watch, things to read, a podcast to listen to, anything that you want to recommend to our audience as something that has gotten you through these dark pandemic days?
I will
Okay.
continue to talk over Rachel and recommend Ted Lasso. I'll continue recommending Ted Lasso
Yes.
forever and ever.
So that's only on Apple TV, right?
Correct.
Mhm.
I gotta figure out how to watch that because I've heard so many great things.
It
You get
gives
a free
me the
1-week
heart.
trial.
Yeah, it gives
What
me
was
the
that?
heart.
You
The
get a
1-week
free
trial.
1-week trial, and then it's only $5 a month. So you could just pay for
Ah.
1 month and binge it because it's super bingeable and it's worth it. I think that Apple TV is doing really, really good stuff right now. Ted Lasso was one of my favorites too. And then this is a show I never expected to like, even though I love food shows. Have you guys heard of or watched Selena and Chef? It is a Selena Gomez cooking show.
Oh my
I
God.
am not only not a fan, I've never heard her speak before. Like she's just not in my orbit. It's not like I'm opposed to her. I just don't even know. I never really even knew who she was except for, oh, that's Justin Bieber's ex-girlfriend. And
Right.
it's this show where she is quarantined at home with her roommates who are her best friends and her grandparents. And then she picks like a famous chef, but more like somebody who was on Top Chef. And they're on a screen and they're teaching her how to cook a dish. And she doesn't know how to cook, but she loves food. And she is so charming in this way because she's so down to earth. I don't know. I really love it. And I can't wait for the next season of Selena and Chef.
Oh, where do you,
All
and
right.
that's on Apple TV too?
That's on Apple TV as well.
Oh, okay. I gotta check that out. That sounds fun. Oh,
Yeah, I'll plus one Ted Lasso. We haven't finished it yet, but it's pretty good so far. I'm also reading a book called Poisoner in Chief about the CIA and LSD and MK Ultra, which super depressing read, but worth a read. And then we just watch a lot of YouTube nowadays. So I would recommend Daily Dose of Internet and Let's Game It Out. Both very funny.
all right. Well, I want to thank you guys all for coming on Buns and Roses. I hope you continue your Bachelor journey and, listen along this season. If you guys end up watching any episodes, just hot tips. So far, I've been getting texts and Marco Polos and messages from all the past guests because they've all gotten sucked in. And so if you find yourself getting sucked in, please know I'd love to hear your thoughts on the upcoming episodes of the Matt James season of The Bachelor. And
I'm
that's
sucked
all.
in.
Huh?
I'm sucked in.
Yeah, all right. So that's all we have got for today. Please like and subscribe and share and, do all the things. Leave us a review, hopefully 5 stars. And I'm Snax the Bunny. You can follow me on all the social media at Free Snax, at FREESNAX. I will post everyone else's social things on the screen, and you can follow all these fine people. Listen and subscribe to Your Last Meal podcast as well. All right. Thank you, everybody. And keep your walls down, be vulnerable, and enjoy the journey.
Take me down to the rose ceremony, the fantasy suites, holy matrimony. Oh, won't you please?